Okay, welcome back to What If History Restarted. We are now in episode 49. Last time we saw us catching up on the Americas, and so now all of the world is up to date in about 1860. Maybe there's some peaceful times. Maybe in the 1860s even. So like around 1865 is the current year. So, we're going to start by going up here to good old Britain. So these Scottish countries, like I have, well, not this one, but these three Scottish countries have been very peaceful with each other for a very long time, and they have like a ton of, like, they have very good relations. Well, that's pretty much what I just said, but like they have like similar currencies and languages and cultures. So eventually they are going to make the decision to unite. And so we see the formation of the Scottish Union. And if you don't remember, this thing has existed before, if I remember correctly. However, they kind of just got obliterated. But they are returning, and they are better than ever. And their capital is officially going to be this one, because nobody likes to live there, so obviously no one's going to want to invade there either. I mean, seriously, this is like actually not, that would just suck. These three cities probably have like higher populations. But anyway, continuing over with wherever we are, we see that these these two get invaded. Yeah, these two countries unite with this one, and these two get invaded by it. So, yeah. And with that, these guys are going to finally get their own official capital. And with that, that's pretty much the end of, well, it's probably not the end, but it's like pretty much the end of Daily Britain updates, as we now see the entire Isles have become peaceful, with 1, 2, 3 countries fully on there, and one country having some land on there. So yeah. We will now go over here to the blue teams of Reconquista, and these guys have been developing a lot of power, a lot of power, and they are finally ready to begin their final push for their old land. And so they are going to start off by invading the red country. Well, they also are going to invade this country, going along the coast to try and take their old capital back. So, after trying time and time again, they're still going to get pushed back over here. Well, pushed into even, not get pushed back necessarily. They do take like this entire area as a front line. Over here they do get pushed back, so that's a little bit embarrassing. But they do gain some land. George Orwell. They do gain some occupied land. So this war is not going too easy for the blue team, but the red team is going to decide, you know what, we could get some nice land out of this. So we see that the red team is going to declare war on all 3 of these countries, including the blue team, their historic rival. And the red team is an extremely powerful country, so they are going to push up into these guys with relative ease. Let's make this kind of different. These countries kind of just they just fall in on themselves. Other than this gray one, which of course is going to be holding out in no place other than the blue team's old capital until they get invaded by the red team. So now the blue team is up against the red team, and if we look at the difference here, it's not especially looking too great for the blue team, who is about, he's 7 times smaller, 7.5 times really, smaller than the red team, and about 7.5 times weaker. The red team is going to start pushing up, and they pretty quickly take over all of this country. They move up here, and they also go up here. So all hope seems to be lost for the blue team, who's like about to get absolutely beaten up by the red team, and probably like absorbed as well. Something like that, or at least the border would be very far back, and the blue team would probably get split up for the 12th billionth time in history. However, as this war starts to seem hopeless, there is then a glimmer of hope, because as the Russians, as the red teamians finally make their way up to the Caucasus Mountains, they have some extreme difficulty. Now, obviously, that's to be expected. However, what's not to be expected is that the blue team does not. The blue team has invaded this area so many times over the past, 500 years, that they are so familiar with the terrain and so used to it, that they actually start pushing back severely. The red team armies get absolutely decimated in the mountains, allowing for the blue team to make a major comeback here. They then push the red team out of this country and all the way out here. The red team funnels up a bunch of troops into the city, but just but the blue team's morale is absolutely through the roof, and so they manage to break the city. However, it is not a complete oh wow, they just absolutely obliterate the red team, because the red team allowed half of those troops just went up here to protect the city. However, the red team has stopped sending troops up to the blue team. The support in the blue team is not invading into the red team, so they're pretty much done. And finally, after so many centuries probably, the blue team's Reconquista is complete as they finally reclaim their old capital over here. In the peace treaty, the red team does not gain any land, and the blue team becomes whole again. So they have this one, and this one. We'll make that a vital city. We'll make that a vital city. This one is just a major city. And then, of course, to nobody's surprise, they are moving their capital to be here. Their old capital. Because that's where they are meant to be, I guess. So there is the new blue team. However, in a way, the Reconquista is, while it is complete, it is not 100% as powerful, I guess, as they would have hoped, because noticeably, they're still missing a nice chunk of land that should really be theirs right down here. Well, more like a sliver of land to the red team. The red team claimed this in another war, and they still hold it over the blue team's head, and that is very annoying. And the thing is, while that peace treaty was settled, tensions never really settled down over here. So both countries start to line their troops up on each other's borders, and that is not a good sign for anybody, and especially not for the blue team. The red team has learned from their mistakes, and they would probably go for a naval invasion like this to go around the Caucasus Mountains. However, as this is happening, we see a very surprising event occur just down here to the south. Over here, these three countries, the Circle Alliance, have pretty different cultures, pretty different histories, pretty different ethnicities, all of that. Egypt and Oman, they are two original countries, although this is a different Oman from the pink Oman that was here originally. And this one's kind of just in the middle. However, these three countries have become extremely brother-like. And so, they also are very strongly allied with the blue team, especially because they have a strong dislike of the red team. Plus, Egypt and the blue team have been allies for quite literally millennia. A good 3,000, 4,000, well, we'll say 3,000 years. And so, we're going to see something happen over here, which is, of course, that these three countries over here are going to unite And so we will make. I'm sorry to any this country fans. I am actually one myself, but it is just not as big or important as either of these two. So we're not going to include its color. But it is still represented. It is not just being annexed by either of these. It is an official part of the union. And so we're going to make these each half and half. Those do seem to be different colors. So now we're at a dilemma. Which one do we choose? Oh wait, no, they're actually the same color. Okay, I just accidentally did an optical illusion, I guess. That is very okay. Either I'm crazy or I just made an optical illusion because those look like the same, different colors, right? And then they're the same color. Okay, well, whatever. That makes my job easier. Well, job, quote unquote. Yeah, this thing is going to have 3 capitals. Absolute beast. And also has a colony. Don't forget its colony in South America. In this country, they're going to officially make a military pact with the blue team, and it states that if the red team were to invade in the blue team, then it would get involved. And so this is a massive relief for the blue team. And after one last stare down with the red team, they call their troops home. However, the red team is extremely furious. They are now sandwiched by 2 big old enemies, and they are not happy with it. They want to take out their anger by expanding somewhere else. So they turn their attention to this peaceful little Central Asian country, and they immediately start to just absolutely run through them. These guys get minced up. However, Golden Horde is like, that's our, you don't seem to understand. Earth is not yours to conquer. And they are going to move down here instead, and they take over some of it before the red team can. Which makes the red team even angrier. So, yeah, that's not great. The dictator right now is having a literal temper tantrum, as he thinks that the entire world is ganging up against him. Which, I mean, reasonably it should be. This is a horrible thing. These guys are, they aren't, genociding, but, they're treading a fine line with what they're doing. So all of this land goes over to Golden Horde, and the rest is ceded over to the red team, which might give it a slightly interesting border. Yeah, actually, that's fine. But yeah, the red team is gigantic now. This is definitely the biggest it's ever been in history. And yeah. We will now go over... Where should we go next? I have a few things planned, but I don't know which one to do. I guess we'll go over to Asia, because over in Asia, they're doing things. Namely, in these 4 countries down here. These 4 countries were previously in alliances that were opposed to each other. Well, I mean, I think these 3 were all in one alliance, and this one was in an alliance that was opposed to them for 1,000 years, if not more. However, drastic times have come, and these guys have actually managed to kind of repair their relations. And it gets so much so to the point that they are considering making an official alliance. The only issue with that is that they are not allowed to do that by the peace treaty of the Great Chinese War, which happened quite a while ago, but it still does happen, or it still does exist. I don't think it was that long ago. Maybe 10 episodes. Isn't it even 10 episodes? I feel like it was probably less. But yeah. It was right after colonization started, so I don't know. It's kind of like the 7 Years' War, but China. Because remember, there's always going to be confusing if you're a new viewer, but there's an ancient Chinese empire that was all of this, and all these countries broke off of it. So yeah, these guys are not allowed to create a new alliance. However, they really want to, and they practically are, but an alliance, but they just can't officially state it. Same goes for these 2, who once again were also historical rivals, but have now seen the corruptness of either their historical rivals or their new betrayers, which are Siberia Korea, China, and the Bengali Empire. These four countries are very brutal and very oppressive, and everybody hates them as they should. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 6. Oh, and Baikal, I almost forgot. Not these guys, though, because they're neutral. They're like the Switzerland of this timeline. Except they're in Asia. I mean, they probably. Actually, that is kind of like Switzerland because of like mountainous and all that. And they have about one city. But anyway, these 7 countries, because of Baikal, are, well, they make a statement together, and it is not an alliance, but basically just says, it's basically just like a warning to the other countries around them that says that if any country attacks them, which, I mean, if any country attacks them, which do we think that's going to be? Like, I guess, I don't know, the Egypt-Oman Union is going to attack this Indian country. I don't know. Probably not. But yeah, their warning basically states that they are going to respond as a whole, as a group, because they are besties for life. And this does not go over well to the Koreans and the Chinese and the Bengalis and the Siberians, because, well, that is almost an alliance, but not quite. And so these countries are the Triangle Alliance. The Triangle Alliance, that's what they are. I cannot speak. The Triangle Alliance kind of, make their own response, and as they say, we hate you all. Because you guys are basically just finding a loophole here. Really just like pretending to not be an alliance when you practically are. And so we see that there's some very tense standoffs on these borders. However, nothing actually escalates into war. However, tensions could not be higher over in China. And as we all know, they could also not be higher over in, the borders of the red team. Including with this new one with Baikal. Also, I kind of feel bad because they didn't get access to the Aral Sea, so let's just give them a little panhandle up there. That probably makes things very inconvenient for... I mean, what purpose would that even serve? You know what? Let's not do that. In fact, we're going to do the opposite. They're going to trade with Golden Horde, which they can already trade with. They share a massive land border. Okay, but anyway. So yeah, tensions very, 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 very high. This country peacefully separates from the good old Spartans. Sparta is just kind of like, yeah, you can go. We kind of feel bad for colonization and all that. So we see the creation of this Ethiopian country. They're, of course, going to get their capital on the tip. And yeah, there we go. Africa is looking a little bit more free. Still, it's just these countries over here. Also, the Egypt-Oman Union is kind of similar in color to Catalonia, so it looks like Catalonia has like a massive empire in this half of the world, but they don't. Well, and also now in South America. I don't think they ever had a colony in South America. Good old. Was even Catalonia? Yeah. Anyway. We're going to go over to Europe now. And of course, we need to mention the thing that's been building up for a while, which is that the Gibraltarians, whatever they're called down here, are getting extremely feisty. They hate being under control of their main rivals, and they want out very desperately. And so, once again, we are going to see some rebellions pop up, but these ones are going to be even larger than the ones we've seen before. The largest of all these rebellions, by far. And this rebellion is going to go absolutely insane. It takes over all of this land, and then it takes over its capital, well, its former capital. And from there, it does all of this. One thing I do want to point out real quick is that, as you can see, like, Catalonia, like, the reason the African colonies haven't broken away yet is because, like, they are, well, first of all, they haven't been, like, ethnically wiped the same way that, well, actually, I guess it doesn't really matter, because these guys, yeah, it doesn't really matter, but the reason that the African colonies haven't broken away is just because, like, they're way faster to get to. I mean, that's, like, literally I mean, literally, look at vital city to vital city. It's like 2 minutes. Not really, but like, yeah. So this Gibraltar rebellion gets absolutely gigantic, and it lasts for several years. Like, it just does not want to get put down. And in fact, it just stalemates here for several years, to the point where these countries are considering just giving it independence. However, they obviously have not done that, because they still want this land. It is very valuable land. It's access to the Mediterranean Sea. It's very vital. And of course, they also just don't want Gibraltar to be independent, because Gibraltar is their main rival, and they do not want another main rival on their border. So, we are going to see a massive influx of troops from Catalonia. They barge all the way down through these major cities on both sides. In fact, we see that they are also going to go ahead and supply Portugal, who does much of the same. And so we have both sides of the Catalonian, or we have both sides of the, what are they called, Gibraltaran capital being surrounded by both of their occupiers. And so a massive battle is going to ensue for the capital. And it is going very well in the favors of Catalonia and Gibraltar. And they are pretty much destined to win. There's like no hope for Gibraltar, until suddenly Gibraltar starts winning. Not only do they start winning immensely. They push down to be all of Morocco. They take pretty much most of Algeria, even threatening that vital city. They go ahead and take all of the southern area of Portugal. They move up here through this border. They make their way down here, even. And now, obviously, these two countries are like, what just happened? There's no way that these guys are not magical. They cannot just like randomly come back so hard. They can't just like, no matter how good their generals are, they were fighting a heavily downhill battle. And so they're going to run a little investigation here. The rebellion is still waging on. It's just its progress has slowed down, so it's kind of stalemated again. So the Catalonians mainly, but also the Portuguese. That was probably just like the Austrians and the Danish and the Belgians and the Bulgarians. Basically, just the entire Star Alliance goes and investigates a lot of like troops and dead things. A lot of dead troops that they found and all their bodies and all that. And they run a very intensive investigation. And what they find is that through well, first of all, they find, because they're able to like find certain weapons and like go back and look at logs of ships that have passed near or by here, and eventually they manage to piece together what happened. The Square team, mainly Tuscany, channeled all of their, well, not all their resources obviously, but they channeled a lot of resources over in Tuscany's capital, and very discreetly sent it down on a fleet of ships, a small fleet of ships, over here. And this was like some amazing equipment. This is like the very best that they have. Not all of the very best that they have, but some of the very best that they have. From there, the unprepared Catalonians and Portuguese were massively pushed back and suffered heavy casualties. And obviously, that's not going to fly well with them. So they immediately start accusing Tuscany of war, of that being a declaration of war. Tuscany is going to say, no, it wasn't, because we were just supplying them. Well, really, they probably say, we did not do anything, but even if we did, we were only supplying them. We weren't actually going after you. But obviously, the Catalonians aren't buying it, and so we see pretty much just what we saw happen over here. We see that the Catalonians and the Tuscans line troops up on each other's borders, like so. Now, the Pyrenees Mountains are here, but I think they're a little bit more south, so that's not an issue. These guys start getting extremely close together, And obviously, people are like, whoa, let's take a step back now. So, over here we'll say, we'll say over in the capital of this Italian country. In this city, we have major leaders from Tuscany and Austria and Denmark and Catalonia and the Gibraltar Revolution and Portugal and Belgium. I think I already said Belgium. Ukraine, the Farmers Union, Bulgaria, Bosnia, Slovakia, Kaliningrad, Estonia. All of these two weird things. We have important diplomats from all of these countries going over here into this capital city to have a peaceful discussion on how to not make World War One happen. Or, well, they don't know. There would be multiple, so how to not make a massive war occur. And these guys are not going to go. This is not going to go very well. And now, an important reason for this is that the Catalonians sent over one of their diplomats, who wasn't like an especially high-ranking government official. He was just a very respected, trusted, experienced diplomat. However, they did not really do much they did not do much like finding out why if they should send him or not. They just said that he's a good diplomat, so we probably should. However, there is one critical flaw with this. That diplomat's best friend was a soldier, and that best friend soldier was killed by the Gibraltarians with the support of the Tuscans. So this diplomat starts scream arguing with all the square team governments, and things get a little bit heated. And this diplomat is going to have a full-on fist fight with the probably king of Bosnia, who, some countries are sending over diplomats, some are sending over their leaders, some are sending both, but all are sending some. None are sending neither. So this fight is very brutal. This fist fight, obviously, it gets broken up by security. By the time it's done, the diplomat over here from Gibraltar from Catalonia has already smashed the head of the king of Bosnia into a hard wooden table repeatedly. And it was a fairly old guy, the king of Bosnia. And so he's not able to recover from his injuries. So, that's not good. This talk was obviously cut very short by that. I mean, the country still kept talking after that, but it was very awkward and kind of just went nowhere. And some arguing and screaming at each other probably continued. But now we are left with tons of civilians dead over here. We have we have tons of Star Team citizens dead due to support from the Square Team. Not to mention, we have a Square Team king dead due to a Star Team person, diplomat, official. So that diplomat is, of course, arrested and imprisoned, found guilty of assault. And with Bosnia, damage is done. Their king is dead. And the king's son, the former prince, now the king, taking his father's place, is absolutely, his dad just got murdered in what was supposed to be a diplomatic conversation. And so, this country, Bosnia, over here, is going to go to Tuscany, just secretly. They have a secret meeting, these two countries only, not the rest of the Square Team, and they debate whether to do anything over here. The troops are still lined up on the borders, if I can get that right. In fact, they're even closer together now. They're literally pointing guns at each other. And of course, these guys just, they have their troops on everyone's borders. And so, eventually, Tuscany and Bosnia, there's no agreement here, because the king of Bosnia, new king, obviously, old one got murdered, new king says that fully supports war. They want a bloody war to end all wars. Tuscany is a little bit more hesitant. And that is until with those soldiers on the troops, or yeah, those troops on the borders, so close, with so many tensions over here, we see that we have, well, we'll do this so you can tell. Over here, we finally have it occur, because one Catalonian troop is going to get into a shouting match with this Tuscan troop, and the subject is, of course, about both the murder of the king over here and the supporting of the Gibraltar rebellion. And things are going to escalate, and the Catalonian soldier is going to shoot at the Tuscan soldier and instantly kill him. He shot him in the head. And the Tuscans are freaking out, but none of their soldiers actually start shooting over into the ranks, the troops of the Catalonian soldiers, because they do not want to go to war. However, the Catalonian soldiers, they aren't really good at realizing that. They just heard gunfire, and then they started shooting. And so we have a massacre on the border of Tuscany by Catalonian troops occur here. And so we see that secret meeting is going to reconvene, I believe that's the word. They meet back up over in, like, this city. And this time, both countries are in full agreement. And so, on March 29th, 1908, we have the governments of Tuscany and Bosnia speaking on behalf of the entire Square Alliance, and they declare war on the entire Star Alliance. And officially, World War I has began. Hooray. Just like in our timeline, we had an assassination of a leader in Bosnia. Not gonna lie, I did not even intend for that correlation, but you know what? Sure. I mean, this really isn't even Bosnia. This is more like Dalmatia, especially considering that they started, like, over here. Like, this is like a weird Serbia thing. It's not exactly like our timeline. And of course, there's nothing to do over here, because Spain and Portugal were neutral. But yeah. And so, obviously, that is going to be the end of today's episode. And episode 50 will be World War I. And I will see you soon.